This is the North Star Takes podcast with Bailey Policki and Jacob Liberta. You can find all our videos here on our YouTube channel, so if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. And if you're a Minnesota Wild fan, give this video a like. We're going to be talking about Kirill Kaprizov mostly today. The team is off to a nice start. 5-1, they got 10 points. They're tied with the Blues at the top of the division in terms of points. So really can't complain about the team overall as a whole. I mean, they're off to a fantastic start, but they're mostly doing it without contributions from their two best players, Kirill Kaprizov and Kevin Fiala. And I should say that Kaprizov is technically, I think he's tied for second on the team in points with 5 assists. So he's got 5 assists, but he just doesn't have any goals. So, yeah, a little bit concerning. He hasn't quite looked like himself compared to the great season he had last year. But then I've seen stuff too where like his first 10 games last year, he only scored 2 goals. He started off a little slow as well. So overall, are you concerned at all about his slow start, not having any goals thus far through 6 games?
I'm not too worried about it just because he's a talented player, and like you just mentioned, last year he got off to a slow start anyways. So this isn't exactly new. Obviously, I'd like to see him get off to a better start than he has, but it's just the reality of the situation. And here we are. But I think he'll come around, albeit it's going to be a little bit of an adjustment because last year, again, we only played 7 teams.
Right.
So now we're playing the whole league again. And especially in this Central Division, I feel like you're going to play a lot of gritty teams that I think will be a little bit tougher to do what you want to do against because they're so familiar with you as opposed to last year
Yep.
outside of the Blues and the Avalanche. I mean, a lot of those teams weren't really familiar playing the Wild all the time. So I think that definitely played to our advantage. And then I also think too it's just early season. It can be a little bit weird sometimes for anybody, let alone uh, Kaprizov. So I
Yep.
I think that's also like should be taken under fair consideration. And then I also think uh, there's more to it than just Kaprizov as far as issues you want to point out with the Wild. Obviously, he's probably probably at the top there as far as concerning trends through 6 games because
Hmm.
there's other things you could look at, like for instance, maybe he would benefit more with Fiala being on his line. That could be worth exploring, but maybe they wait to do that until they're really in a slump. I mean, obviously we're 5-1 through 6 games, so you don't want
Yep.
to change up too much because you're winning. But at the same time, maybe that could help, and then that also in turn help Fiala get going. And then you could also think about with this team too how um, it's really the lack of center depth. I think is starting to show, and I also think as far as the power play goes, I think that needs to get going too.
Yeah,
Not
for
just
sure.
with Kaprizov, but with everybody. I think we rank 20th right now as we're currently recording this in the league. And then if you want to flip that, then we're talking about the Wild being bottom 5 in both penalty kill percentage and just penalty minutes in general. So
Yes.
I think that's not great when we're talking about odd man advantages for either team. That has to get better. But it's good to know that we must be playing good 5-on-5 hockey then if we're five and
Right.
one. So yeah, just going off on a tangent there, but yeah, I think there's more things to look at too with Kaprizov than just him himself.
For sure. I kind of like that you brought up the possibility of him playing with Kevin Fiala. I think that would really be a good opportunity because both those guys are playmakers that are willing to set people up.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Kaprizov plays with Zuccarello right now, who obviously is good at setting people up as well. But I think
Mm-hmm.
Kaprizov needs a guy who's more willing to be like a sniper on his line. And Kevin Fiala, like if you give him the puck, he's more than willing to shoot it. Like he will gladly shoot the puck, basically. Like he's probably the most shot happy player on the team besides maybe Matt Dumba. So um, yeah, I think that would be an intriguing line combination, especially playing with Eriksson Ek. I really don't want them to move off from Eriksson Ek being on that first line just because I think he's playing so well. He's earned being on that top line. I think they really just have to figure it out. Honestly, it's probably a little bit of a chemistry thing between Eriksson Ek, Kaprizov, and Zuccarello. There's probably just something a little off there. And then when it comes to the power play too, like Fiala's out there with him, Eriksson Ek's out there. So like, he's got some good skill players around him too. I just think really what Kaprizov needs is he just needs to see one go in the net. It's kind of like a shooter in basketball. You just need to see one go through and then, the floodgates will open up and he'll start scoring all over the place. So I really just think even if he gets one where it's like a deflection or it's just kind of a scrappy goal, then his confidence will instantly shoot back up. And then I think he'll be back to good old normal Kirill that we saw last year.
Yeah, I totally agree. I like that comparison to a shooter hitting a bucket in basketball. I think that's definitely a mental thing that can help you and just build confidence or restore confidence that you've had previously in your career. Albeit Kirill, this is only his second year in the NHL, so
Yeah.
obviously sometimes there's going to be a sophomore slump too, and that's just natural. But at the same time, you just got to believe he's going to come around. I don't think it's time to hit the panic button and just think about what we're doing here. But
Hmm.
I they'll find a way to get him more involved. And as Evanson's saying too, maybe he's just trying to do too much right now. Maybe he's just got to settle down a little bit and not get too get too flashy. But at the
Right.
same time, I think he'll come to his own eventually. It's just about being patient, and I don't think people should jump the gun just yet.
Yeah, and I'll say this much too, like, you see this in professional sports all the time, but mostly in hockey, like, the good players always eventually, figure it out. It's
Yeah.
like in hockey, you know who the good players are gonna be pretty much every single season. I mean,
Hmm.
you know that Ovechkin's gonna score 40 or 50 goals, you know McDavid's gonna lead the league in points.
Hmm.
So, I think it's gonna be the same thing here. Like, yeah, he's getting off to a slow start, and hopefully that's not a trend that continues for years to come.
Hmm.
As he gets more and more comfortable with this team and it becomes more and more apparent that it's his team, then maybe he'll start off faster. So I just think he's going to figure it out. He's way too talented of a hockey player. He's way too smart of a player to not figure it out. So I still anticipate him scoring somewhere between 30 and 40 goals this year, honestly. So I'm not too worried about that. But shifting gears a little bit here, it's been reported now by Michael Russo that the Wild are having a little bit of a COVID outbreak. Apparently, it started with Bill Guerin having COVID, and then it kind of leaked down to a couple assistant coaches, and now apparently a couple players on the team have it as well. And as we're recording this right now, it remains to be seen who those players are. But they're calling up a few guys from Iowa, and not any big name prospect guys either. It's like Kyle Rao, Connor Dewar. So obviously, this isn't ideal timing, but hopefully they can just contain it to a couple guys. So, are you concerned about this? I think last year they had a brief period where they had to cancel some games because pretty much the whole team had COVID.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about it. I guess I really got to read into the NHL's policy around COVID more, I think, because I'm pretty familiar with like the NFL's, but as far as the NHL goes, I wasn't even thinking about it because when you come out before the season starts and be like, oh, yeah, our league is basically fully vaccinated, then you just
Right.
don't really think that much about it. But apparently now you still got to follow protocols and guys have COVID. But at the same time, it's like, well, how long do these guys really have to be out if they can test negative tomorrow or something like that? So
Right.
assuming they can be back in like in an NFL time span where it's like a couple days and you're back on because you had a couple negative tests, then I'm fine with it. Like it's not really gonna be that big of an issue. But if it's like a full 10-day ordeal or something, then I'd be a little bit more worried. And then
Yep.
it obviously greatly depends who these guys are that are missing time. Like if it's just Greenway right now is playing like crap. So I mean
Yep.
if he's out or like for instance, Victor Rask or something like that, like that's not going to hinder your team too much. But
No.
like, let's say if it's your stars, like we just got done talking about the Kaprizov, a guy that's trying to get going, as well as Fiala, then yeah, then I'd be a little bit more worried about us dropping some games here coming up.
Yeah, that'd be probably the most concerning part is that if it was like Kaprizov, then that would just delay him getting into more of a groove, because
It'd be
like
such a setback.
even if he's not playing amazingly, him just being on the ice, it's kind of like the Vikings having Dalvin Cook on the field. It's like having Kaprizov on the ice just makes a world of difference when it comes to how well this team plays, how teams defend them,
Yep,
etc. So,
because we play
yeah,
through them.
exactly. So yeah, that would be my main worry. I'm sure we'll learn more within the next couple days here. They play a
Hmm.
game. It'll be what, Thursday against the Kraken. So
Hmm.
I'm sure we'll figure it out by then because obviously those players won't be playing. So,
Hmm.
do you have any other thoughts, I guess, before we wrap up here on the Wild's start to the season?
You know, for being a 5-1 team, I think we got a little bit more on the negative side of things, I guess, in this episode. But I would also say that as far as positives go, I'm pretty excited with what the depth of this team looks like because I think
Hmm.
our fourth line has proven to be a lot more productive than anybody probably could imagine from
Yeah.
Bukestad to Sturm to Duham. Like they look pretty nice out there and they're grinding and they're putting a lot of good effort and uh, giving us a lot of good chances. So I'm pretty happy to see that. I think our fourth line is definitely better than a lot of the other fourth lines out there.
Yes.
So if this can continue, that's going to be a huge boost for this team. Just because most teams don't go deeper than 2, 3 lines or something. If we have a good producing fourth line, that's going to pay dividends, even if they're only on the ice 10 minutes a game, whatever it is.
Yep.
I still think any little bit counts, and that can be the difference between winning and losing the games, because the margin of victory is very, very thin.
That is true. I love that you brought up the fourth line. I think those guys have been absolutely fantastic. And if you can start getting your studs to produce, having a fourth line that plays like that is just insanely, it's such a huge advantage. Like,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to like the playoffs, and obviously, guys are going to be taking shorter shifts because, it's more aggressive hockey, then you're going to want your fourth line to be able to contribute. So
Exactly.
I've always been a big Nico Sturm fan. I think he's got great talent. He's got great speed. And, him being buried on the fourth line is kind of unfortunate, but there's really no path to him getting any further up, at least not right now. But I mean, he's a great fourth line player. Duhaime looks very impressive, like you said. And Bugstad's just kind of a steady player. He's a veteran. He kind of knows what he's doing out there, but obviously he's nothing flashy, but just kind of a steady fourth line presence, which you could always use. So
yeah, which I'll take that over like Victor Rask or something.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think they got to find a way to keep Rask out of the lineup here. And this Pitlick guy looked pretty decent last night. So
I'm kind of wondering if he'll find his way into the rotation consistently.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they handle that. So, and then, maybe him playing with Fiala will give Fiala a little bit of a boost. So
yeah,
remains to be seen. There's always some sort of interesting storylines going on with this team, which is a good thing. I mean, they're good, they're talented, and it's a good problem to have when you have a lot of interesting, talented players. So
absolutely, never a dull moment.
For sure, and that's exactly what we want. So that's going to do it for this edition of the North Star Takes podcast. Please be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, especially if you're a Minnesota sports fans. We pump out multiple Minnesota sports videos a week. Give this video a like as well so it can reach other Minnesota Wild fans. Leave your comments below on your thoughts about Kaprizov, if you're concerned about him, if you think he's going to be just fine, and just the team overall, what your thoughts are on the Wild and their 5-1 start. And be sure to give us a follow on both Twitter and Instagram. Thanks for watching.